Hey Reefers, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the dreaded aptasia. What was that? That was a little bit weird. But anyway, I've been putting this video off for a while. Basically, I wanted to do this video ages ago when I had a nice size stripey and just one of the best fish so far that I've used to get rid of aptasia. You know, he didn't touch my corals. I literally put him in on a Saturday afternoon, and by Sunday I had no aptasia left. And I had him for about another further 2 months, and he didn't touch any of my zoas, any of my euphyllias, none of my soft meaty corals, none of my SPS corals, and he lived quite happily. Until the one day he jumped out, and I don't know if you recall one of the videos prior, I mentioned my cat ran out the door with him before I even knew what happened. She was gone. Get. Yeah, the other day I had a stripey jump out. My stripey jumped out my display tank. And my little cat that you just saw run out the door, she ran out the door with it in its mouth. It was, yeah. Okay, so I do have another stripey. When it landed, if you guys remember that video, he was tiny. They are so tiny. That is so cool. Ooh. I didn't even know that we got them that size. That is awesome. And now he's grown quite big. There he is swimming around over there. So I was hoping to do a before and an after of my aptasia in my aquarium. That rock there is full of aptasia, and I've got some aptasia growing in the zoas over here. So that's why I want one for the display tank. And he seems to have just, you know, he's got to a certain size and he's starting to sort out the aptasia. So I will show you some pics of that. There was my very bad rock. I still have some aptasia growing on there, but it seems to be much better now. And then there are a few other spots around the tank where there are aptasia. In my zoas, there are some aptasia. He seems to be taking care of those. Okay, so basically when it comes to getting rid of aptasia, there are many products on the market that do this, and there are many DIY products that are available. And they all work pretty well. I'll leave a list of products on the market that you can get to get rid of aptasia. And I'll also leave a list of some DIY remedies for aptasia. When getting rid of aptasia though, you got to remember, if you don't do it correctly and the aptasia gets, how can I say, shocked, it can release spores into the water, spreading it even worse. And the problem I was having, maybe I was doing it incorrectly, but I would zap all the aptasia in the aquarium and everything was all happy, and I was like, I got them all, I can't believe it. And then about a month and a half later, aptasia starts popping back up again, and you zap them and the same thing just keeps happening. And I tend to find that, for example, I had a colony of 10 aptasia on a rock, and I'd zap them and I'd get them all. Maybe I'd have to get one or two a few extra times after, but eventually that rock was clear of aptasia. And about a month and a half later, I would see aptasia popping back up, but there would be more. And at the one point, I just decided to stop zapping the aptasia. So they tend to stay at the number that they were. They just got bigger and meatier and more, I'm going to say, healthier. And one day, clients of mine had a stripey that he no longer wanted, and I purchased it from him. That was my first one, the one that jumped, the one that my cat ate. And like I said, by the next day, my aptasia was gone. You know, I used to always joke, when I still do sometimes, when people ask on groups and that, what is this, can you identify it? And 9 times out of 10, someone's already identified it as aptasia. And my comment would be, burn your house down, relocate, change your name, and then start the hobby up again. That's how painful aptasia is to most people. But you know, I find if you have got aptasia, if it has got into your system, having a fish or a shrimp that is known to eat aptasia is something that you need to look at, and something you need to look at keeping in your aquarium to help you maintain it or keep it under control. Like I said, zapping it does work, and sometimes you do get, like I had an issue where it kept coming back, and I feel once it's there in your system, it's pretty much there in your system. Because also when you're using a product to zap the aptasia, you have to remember there's aptasia you can't see. There's aptasia in the back of the rocks, in little nooks and crannies where you can't get to. And the only other way to get to it is to strip your system, take those rocks out, and then try and zap them. But there you stress out your system, you know. And like I found when I had that first stripey, he kept the tank under control. I would take a rock from a sump that had aptasia or another system that had aptasia and drop it in the tank, and you'd actually see him change his mood from a fish just swimming around like as usual to going into this like almost like a hound hunting mode, and he would like dig his head through my zoa garden looking for the aptasia until he actually found the rock with it, and within 5 minutes that rock was clean. So like I say, there are other specimens as well that you can use to take care of aptasia. There are quite a few filefish that eat aptasia. You just have to keep an eye on them. Sometimes once the aptasia is finished, they can pick on other polyps, so picking on your corals. Copper bands are good at taking care of aptasia 9 times out of 10, but please bear in mind copper bands are not a fish for anyone. They do require a lot of attention. Getting them to feed is not an easy task. They don't like to be challenged for food. They're very timid fish, so they need to be either in a tank with very, very mellow tank mates, or in their own system until they are feeding vigorously and know how to fend for themselves for food. Because 9 times out of 10, if you put them straight into a tank with aggressive feeders, they tend to keep to themselves and eventually starve themselves to death. You know, if they take to aptasia straight away in a system like that, then you know they can sort of live off the aptasia until they get till they become a stronger fish. And also if that system is really well stocked with copepods, so real mature system with a nice healthy colony of copepods, that can also help the fish get going. But ideally we want to get that kind of fish feeding. So like I say, a placid aquarium for it, not too aggressive. That's our sort of goal with that fish. So like I say, the stripey, this guy eats like a pig. He keeps to himself. He's not an aggressive fish. Other fish don't really bother him because of the way he swims. He swims very aggressively. So you put him in the tank and other fish sort of look at him and think, okay, let's not take on him. And so far, myself personally, I haven't had a problem with them eating corals. I don't know if there are any other issues that have been reported of a stripey picking at corals. If you have heard anything, please drop a comment down below. It will be very helpful for other people as well, and also for myself. I mean, if there are issues happening, I mean, I always keep an eye on him and make sure he's not eating anything, and I haven't noticed him eating anything, and he's been in the system for quite a while now. He's only just started eating aptasia as he's come to size. You know, also if there's any products that I missed on the list earlier on taking care of aptasia, please add it in the comments below. There's, like I say, aptasia, it sneaks into your aquarium. You might get a frag plug from someone with one on that is so tiny and you don't see it. You know, before you can dip to your heart content. Dip is not going to kill it. It is an anemone family. Other name for it is a glass anemone, and they can handle dips as anemones, and corals can handle dips as well. So a dip is not going to do anything. The idea there is if you do not want aptasia in your tank, a quarantine system is a must. That way you can have that frag or those frags that you're going to put into your system in a quarantine system, leave them there for a couple of months, if you've got the space to do that, and just check for anything growing. The other option is to remove a frag plug and put it onto a brand new frag plug if it's like an SPS coral where the flesh goes all the way down to the surface. If it's something like an Euphilia, like a branching hammer or a walling hammer, a frog spawn torch, the aptasia can still attach to the skeleton of the coral below the head itself. So you just have to keep an eye out for it. If you do see something like that, then you need to treat it, scrape it off in another separate tub, rinse it off, give it a nice rub with like a scourer, a rough sponge, give it a good, like almost like a sandpaper, put it back in the frags, in the quarantine system, and monitor it. Once you know it's free of aptasia, add it to your aquarium. But we can do everything to prevent it from happening, and there's always a small chance that it does still get in your aquarium. Buying live rock from someone else is also a prime example of introducing it into your system. Something we want to try and stay away from, but unfortunately it does happen. I hadn't had aptasia in a system for majority of my reefing life, and I've got it in this system now. I've had it in the system for about two years. I've tried everything with the zapping. I haven't got, like I said, it always comes back. With the last stripey, it did eliminate it, but unfortunately, I do feel once it's in your system, it is one hell of a job to get it out of your system. I feel we have to, as reefers, learn to live with the aptasia, and if you can get it out by using one of the remedies or one of the products on the market, and you successfully get rid of it all, then that's awesome, that's great. Still wouldn't help having something like a stripey or a peppermint shrimp. Sorry, I forgot to mention peppermint shrimp also are known to take care of aptasia. I haven't had luck with them. I've only used 2, or I think I've only had 3 in the system before. I think it was 3, I can't really recall, but they tend not, well, the ones that I had weren't interested in the aptasia, and they were in the tank for quite a while. I have read that it is like a 50-50. They either take to it or they don't take to it, but no harm in putting a few peppermint shrimp in your aquarium anyway. Just be careful, there are often peppermint shrimp sold as peppermint shrimp, but they aren't peppermint shrimp. So if you aren't quite sure, I think the other one is a camel shrimp, and they are known to eat your polyps. So just make sure that what you're putting in your aquarium is a peppermint shrimp. And then as for other fish, obviously if you've got a fish only aquarium and you don't have corals and you have aptasia in your system and you want to get it out, pretty much any one of the butterflies, they will take care of it without a doubt. And you don't have to worry about the fish eating your coral. And they, like I say, I have used them in, I've got my invert system, and I had some rock in there that had some aptasia in, and it was an invert system, no coral, so I just threw in, I think I had 2 raccoon butterflies, threw the 2 raccoon butterflies in, and they took care of the aptasia. And so like I say, if you're not running a reef aquarium, then butterflies will also do a good job. If you want to risk it, you can throw a butterfly in with your coral if it's easy enough to catch out, except for the copper band butterfly. They aren't really known to take on coral. They can, so also just keep an eye on that. So like I said, Stripey, so far I'm very happy with him. He hasn't been picking on any of my corals. They grow very fast, very, very fast. He's pretty much like gone 3 times his size in about 2 months, maybe 2.5 months. That's quite incredible. But lovely personality, very inquisitive, eats like a little pig, and so feeding him, you don't have to worry about that. So if there are no aptasia in the tank, he will gladly take out pellets. Guys, thanks for watching, and happy reefing.